And Global Affairs Analyst Calvin Dack joins me via Skype from the United States to share his thoughts on this final approval. Many thanks to you, Calvin Dack, for joining us on this hour. After 3 years of negotiations, the UK will finally leave the EU on Friday after the members of the European Parliament voted for the UK to leave. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think one of the things that just kind of was obvious to me is the whole trek towards Brexit and the debates. You know, everyone was talking about it, not just in the UK, but here in the United States and everywhere else. But I think it's kind of anticlimactic. Now, that may be, of course, because we have a lot of news going on here in the United States. But after all of that, I think after Boris Johnson's election, that was so overwhelming, I think at least here in the United States, people realized that while not everybody supported Brexit, that it was going to be done. So now is the only question is, what will the UK look like post-Brexit?
And that's my next question, because the UK benefited largely from the single market. And now Brexit supporters argue that having the freedom to set its own trade policies will boost the UK's economy. What's your take on that?
I think it could have the potential to do that. Now, of course, you've even seen our Secretary of the Treasury and President Trump himself talk about a potential UK-US trade deal. Two things to keep in mind about that. One is I can almost guarantee you that will not be happening before November. And if Donald Trump isn't reelected, we don't know what the feeling will be of the next president. Also, people need to realize that with the proposed agreement with the U.S., while President Trump and Boris Johnson and people of the Leave movement see eye to eye on a lot of things, not everything. So even if President Trump could get it through on the American side, there's still debates about include the health system, how environmental regulations will be handled. So if that is a possibility, it's nowhere in the near future.
Immigration is also one of the biggest issues here. Just recently, it was announced that the UK would change its passport from the normal, burgundy color to the old blue and gold color. Generally, how do you think that this would impact on immigration?
Well, I think about two particular things. One is for the younger generation, early to mid-career professionals who have a British identity and an EU identity. That's going to be a huge psychological step because after Friday, that won't necessarily be the case. And while in the future, the UK could re-enter, I don't think anybody thinks it's going to happen anytime soon. The other situation with immigration is we all know that a lot of the push behind Brexit dealt with frustrations of immigration, some including racism and xenophobia. So I think that there will be practical barriers about what immigration to the UK looks like, but there will also be psychological ones. That what is this saying to the world? Particularly, what is it saying to those populations that are not welcomed by some in the UK?
All right, let's look at Africa benefiting from Brexit. We know that the highest trade volume between the UK and Africa is between $1 billion to $8 billion. But when you look at the UK and the US, Australia, it's between 50 billion to 250 billion naira. So, and we had the UK-Africa summit recently. How can Africa leaders or the African continent benefit more from Brexit?
Well, what I think African leaders should do is try to at least follow Donald Trump's model. And what I mean is Donald Trump and his administration have not been shy at all talking about what they envision could be possible for a US-UK trade agreement. So I think African countries should do the same. I think, they should realize that now Brexit is going to happen. They need to make sure that the UK knows the added value that Africa can bring and how that trade relationship can benefit African countries and the UK, but they've got to ask and be forward with it for that to even be on the UK's radar. But I think it does have great potential.
Global Affairs Analyst Calvin Dack, many thanks for your time.